I want to start with Mercedes and the
Ooh,
question.
Big surprise.
I want to start with the question: can Mercedes repeat their performance from Canada?
No, I don't believe so. I think if you're Mercedes, I think your shift focuses now to securing podiums. That goes for Kimi and that goes for George. Not to say they can't compete for race wins, but I think to have the expectation for Mercedes to repeat as winners or repeat as double podiums is a little bit high expectations for a car that, not that they've been doing bad, but they weren't eyeing race wins, say 3-4 weeks ago. Matter of fact, Kimi was in a rut and George was kind of just doing his thing in 4-5. So to say that they need a repeat of a race win or double podiums is a little high. I would say if you're Mercedes, you definitely need to be focusing on trying to secure max points, trying to secure podiums, and then you see what happens from there.
I think overall, we just don't have a trend. Like, we got this one-off win in Canada. We saw George Russell have a really impressive race. And to be completely fair, and I said it last week, I think George is driving the hell out of the Mercedes this year. He's been incredibly impressive. And seeing the trajectory of where this season could go, he could be fighting for P3 alongside Max Verstappen, which, I mean, that's going to be fireworks the rest of the way. It's going to be must-see TV, even if it's not fighting for race wins directly. But, yeah, we just need to see a trend. Mercedes aren't even sure that what they have upgrades wise are going to carry over directly into every single style and format. The track specific layout in Canada worked really well with what Mercedes have. They favor a lot of the slower speed cornering. It's a little bit cooler temperature wise there. I think the average temperature was like 77 degrees over the course of the weekend. A little bit warmer on Sunday, but a lot of things were kind of leaning into Mercedes' historical favor. Am I going to completely rule them out at the front? I don't think that it would be. I think that it's a bit unfair to rule them out completely, but I'm not going to favorite them.
Yeah.
I don't think George Russell is going to jump to the front every single week the rest of the way. This weekend, if anything, is another huge test for Mercedes because they got a great win, but they don't know how much of this carries over into a much higher speed format, higher speed cornering that we get in Austria. Slower speed cornering in Canada, again, just played right into the characteristics of what this team does well, at least within this regulation set. I think the definition of the weekend could very well be what it has been all season, which is whoever comes out on pole in qualifying, whoever starts out front is going to have the best run of the weekend as long as they survive turn one.
Now, another thing to keep in mind here, and you talked about them kind of being all over the board, no real consistency when it comes to Mercedes this year. Don't forget, and I know you won't forget, Kimi won a sprint already this year.
Got a sprint pole.
A sprint pole, excuse me. So, another sprint weekend this weekend in Austria, if you didn't already know. So much to be excited for Mercedes. I would say, again, just re-solidifying that they've already, announced, and I think you even said it last week, 60-40 more towards 2026 than what they're currently doing in 2025.
That's not to say they aren't going to bring any upgrades.
Right. No, of course. But where they're, where most of their resources are going, most of their time is going. And yet they're still doing an incredible job in 2025 and, just continue to try to solidify themselves in the second place for the constructors.
Yeah. So as far as what we're going to learn from Mercedes this weekend, I think you just chalk it down into a couple of different areas. First off, it's tire degradation, higher temperature tire degradation, harder fast corners, in Austria are going to be a big emphasis here. I know that a lot of the name of the game in Formula One, especially in recent history, is clean air and tire deg. McLaren have absolutely kicked ass at doing both of those things, getting out in front, staying out in front with great tire degradation quality. But if Mercedes can at least get the degradation down, I think that gets them at least a little bit more into this picture. The upgrades seem to have worked. They feel really happy with them. They just need more data. As far as the expectations, I think I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to expect George Russell to hit the front row. He performed well last year, given the circumstances. Yeah, I think he started in P3. That P3 netting a race win after the collision out front between your boy and Max Verstappen. So, and that got them their first win of the season last year before having that nice run from Silverstone and then still collecting the win in Spa. Expectations aren't super high. I think that George Russell, I wouldn't bank it, but is going to be a contender for P3 at the very least. And they seem right now that they're in a good place car-wise. I think Kimi Antonelli would be an interesting person to land P5.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. If I tell you both Mercedes end up in the top 5, what are your takeaways from the weekend?
It's a good weekend.
I would say that's a great weekend.
That's a positive weekend. I think, and we're going to get to McLaren here in a few moments, but like McLaren should still be the general favorites. They talked a lot about how in Canada that they just didn't quite suit that track. Their car wasn't really built for those kinds of conditions. And they just kind of had struggles when it came to setup all weekend anyway. We know how tight the margins are this year at the front of the field between Red Bull, between Mercedes, between
Max Verstappen.
Between Max Verstappen, McLaren, and Mercedes, where the setup specificity could make a huge difference over the course of your entire weekend. If you're just having a lot of questions walking into a Saturday, qualifying Saturday, you don't have a lot of answers, you're probably not going to be in the race, win category. But talent can overcome some things, Max Verstappen. But at the end of the day, having a good setup is going to be the name of the game. Even with these upgrades Mercedes have, I think they still kind of have to nail it and have to hope McLaren are at least questioning what they're doing. So if you are, honestly, I just want to know, what do you think McLaren and Mercedes are going to be doing this weekend? Does Mercedes have a chance to grab another podium? Do they fall back in this heat? Let us know in the comments.